Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I hope you're fresh, mashallah, and ready for another 1 hour, not grilling, I hope. So we've got a short film about the Majestic Qur'an, which our wonderful brother is going to show us. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. This is that film we had made for £5,000, all right? So I've got to show it to you, I'm spending so much money.
Words are powerful.
We want freedom by any means necessary.
They have the ability to inspire, to evoke emotion.
I am the greatest.
To transform you, and even to change the world. The words of Allah are the most powerful. Imagine truly experiencing the words of Allah like never before. Here's the problem. You read the Qur'an, but you don't understand Arabic. This puts a barrier between you and the words of Allah, which weakens your relationship with Him.
Old English language, so it's difficult to understand. You've got to open an English dictionary to actually understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually telling you.
I've read other translations before, and they didn't really make so much sense. I found it quite hard.
It's like getting directions in a foreign language when you're lost. Introducing the Majestic Qur'an, the first English translation which has been specifically crafted to connect you deeply with the words of Allah so that they truly transform you. The Qur'an is not simply meant to be read, it's meant to be experienced.
What is experience? An experience leaves you with something. Something is imparted to you. Experience is about receiving and transformation. That is what the Quran should be doing for you. You don't just read or recite, you truly receive, and that helps you to reform, leaving you better than when you first read it.
It's like when we travel, we remember the smells, the sights, the sounds, the taste, the touch, and feel of things. We are left richer from the experience. It changes us. To craft the perfect reader experience, we focus deeply on 2 core elements: language and design.
So I went back and translated every single word, every single verse into very modern plain English. This also helps you to see the structure and how the passage link together and understand the bigger picture. The Quran instructs the readers to ponder, to reflect, to think over and over again. So each page includes a lesson for life, which is a prompt for the reader to think about.
I'm a user experience designer. It's my job to help users get the best possible experience in order to engage them and make that information they're looking for easy to find and digest. This keeps them there for longer.
To ensure we truly can experience the words of Allah and have a rich reading experience, we've replaced the traditional verse-by-verse translations with free-flowing paragraphs which take you deep into the core messages. We've summarized into themes and headers which help you see the bigger picture and how the passages link together. We've formatted every page manually and adopted the easiest, most simple typeface to make it user-friendly to read the Arabic. We've put colored section headers to space everything out and to make the Quran easily digestible.
When I saw the final package put together, I was genuinely absolutely amazed.
Really, this is one of those Qur'ans that once I'm reading it, I want to continue to read it.
Everything about it, as far as I could see, was setting a standard. Easy on the eye, it's not overly complicated. Not just modern English, but uses contemporary turns of phrase, which I think makes it extremely accessible.
All of this was done so the Quran can truly be understood in the modern world.
We should be able to experience this book how it should be, where reading it is a pleasure. We should be able to lose ourselves in the Quran like we do with a good book or any classic literature.
Being able to understand the Quran it's made me decide to become Muslim. That's the bottom line to it.
Started reading the Majestic Qur'an, and now I love it, and I actually follow the book and I understand.
Your relationship with Allah is a bit more close.
Using it as a teaching tool, I'd recommend it to those who are teaching the Quran, especially to younger people as well.
Generally, just having all of these things together makes it a read that ends up transforming you.
All in all, it's geared towards an enjoyable reading experience. When we enjoy something, we spend more time with it. The Quran should be elegant, it should be simple, and it should be a great experience.
we want to launch the Majestic Qur'an globally. With your help, we will be able to publish the paperback version that will be distributed in schools, colleges, prisons, to your parliamentarians and to your councillors, so that they too experience the words of Allah.
Support us in our dream to build a world where the Qur'an is experienced, implemented and lived by. Words are powerful.
Okay, I'm just trying to share with you something I'm very passionate about. And, you know, if you're not passionate about the work you do, you can never be successful in it. And I like Haji Muhammad Iqbal Sahib and his passion as well for spreading the beautiful teachings of the Sheikh as well. You know, that's the sort of passion we need, you know, and no matter what other people might think of you, you know, being crazy, but that's okay. You know, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, remember Allah so much that people begin to regard you as being crazy. Okay, so we have to have that passion for our mission. So Yasrab is a wonderful inspiration as well for that, and for all of you young people, you know, really, and you know, his passion to go to everybody to share that amazing teachings, you know, because, you know, the idea is we want to benefit others, and I can only benefit others with what I have, okay, and what I believe to be good. And if people like it, they're free to access it and have it. If they don't, that's their choice, you know. But our job is to continue to share this. And I really believe, you know, we still haven't shared the Quran enough. We don't share enough of it. And more than that, we ourselves are not really benefiting from it enough as we ought to. Really, you know, it's a book that is not for the dead, although we made it for the dead now. Khatam वास्ते इसे रखी हुई है, Khatam कोई मस्जिद पढ़ सा जाए ना. And you know, it's a book that is actually to be reflected upon, and you know, its stories are to be told. We never tell them, you see. You know, we just take little snippets of verses even, and we just talk about them rather than the whole verse or the whole section. So I hope, you know, we can begin to change ourselves and put the Quran at the center of our deen, rather than to the side, you know, and put our fiqh, we put the fiqh at the center, and that's what perhaps creates some problems for us, you know, as though we're just ritualistic people, eh? And that's what fiqh is actually. Let's be honest, fiqh without the spirit, what is it? It's the rituals, you know. The fiqh tells you stand straight, eh? And when you bow, it must be 90 degrees, otherwise it's not good enough for you. Eh? And you must put your 6 parts on the floor for this. Those are rules, ritualistic rules. Fantastic. I'm not, you know, saying we shouldn't. But if they don't have the spirit of the love of Allah, eh? And the yearnings for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the desire to be of use and help to fellow human beings, and you haven't got that pain and feelings for your fellow human beings, what is it? If it isn't, Iqbal calls it Budqada. This is the new idol, temple of the idols. This is the new temple of idols. And that is not a deen, you know, that is a living deen. But we have a living deen. So that is why, you know, we really need to be putting the Quran back to center. Let's go back to Surah Al-Qaf, because I want to do something else other than this, some tips for effective study later on before I finish. But let me just go. So we've done 2 stories of the 5 stories of Surah Al-Qaf, and the idea was to show you how, one, there is a ring structure, but more than that, how the stories are very minimalist, okay? There is a lot of deletion going on here, okay? The Quran is really, but, so let's look at this story of the rich man and the poor man. What have you learned from that story, okay? So what is the lessons that the Quran wants us to take from this, do you think? What are the lessons it's asking us? Dr. Ishfaq? So lessons from the story of the rich man and the poor, that conversation, that almost a debate they had, and then the consequences. Yes, what is it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As you know, like Hussain, they always, during their Jummah khutbah, they use Surah Kahf as an example and as an analogy how to we can actually use the lesson in our daily life. So one of the lesson is if you buy, let's say, any material stuff, let's say you have a house, you have a fancy car, then you buy not to show off people. If someone is renting a house and you buy a brand new house, don't show off. It look like you are renting and then I bought a brand new house. If someone doesn't have a child and you have child, then in front of them, just don't brag. And they also mentioned, like, let's suppose if someone is divorced and then you are married, don't tell in front of them that how much you're in love with your spouse. And other lesson that they mention, because there are so many that you can actually derive from it.
So first one is you're saying is don't brag.
Don't brag.
And that's a very, very important thing about, you see, arrogance has lots of branches. One of our great teachers has done about 16 different branches. Belligerence is one of them. Bragging is another one. Boasting is another one. Pride is another one. But they all have different meanings. They're not same meanings. And I hope you can see why you need to learn this vocabulary. Because if you don't know what this is, you don't know, you perhaps falling into the trap of, you might be bragging, you might be boasting, you might be full of proud, and you are actually in that camp of the mustakbirin. Yes, so bragging is one. What's the other one?
And also, like, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you wealth, health, then you should do a lot of shukr, like gratefulness.
Wonderful. So. Yes, there doesn't seem to be much shukr coming from this guy, yeah, not at all. You know, it's just... what else? Anybody looked at the humble poor man and his response? Anybody reflected on what his response was to him? The brother here.
Well, he has, first of all, not only he tolerated the talk of the arrogant man, he has sabr there, and secondly, he has some.
So he has sabr.
Sabr, yeah.
Good. So he's patient. He's yeah.
And secondly, he has umeed there. He was saying, okay, I hope that God will actually give me, which is much better than.
MashaAllah, that's a very good point. I hope he's man of hope as well. Very good point there. So he's full of hope. He's positive about him as well, okay? And he's hopeful that he could change, okay? Yeah, what else?
And then he is also warning the arrogant guy that, look, I'm like that, you should be like that. Obviously, you should be remembering, because this is all of it is given by God. So if he has given this to you, he can actually take it back as well.
Yeah. So he's doing amr bil ma'ruf, nahi anil munkar. He's telling him what is right and what is wrong. Do you see that? But he does it in a very wise way. Okay, so I hope, you know, as I say, every story is really a metaphor, a big long metaphor with, and what, you know, the whole point of language and words is to convey reality to us, isn't it? Eh? And the stories tell a reality in a different way in which you experience it, and I hope you can begin to, and it has so many ramifications about human life and experience and feelings, isn't it? That you can't use, you know, if you were to, you know, Allah could have just said here, you know, don't be arrogant when you have too much wealth. But can you see how dry that is? That would be very dry, wouldn't it? Eh? But by telling this story, you begin to see different facets of it and the wisdom in it. Is that right, everybody? So I hope you can see the value of telling stories and why we need to know the Quranic stories as well. So this is where, you know, anybody who's a Hafiz should be, you know, would be able to read, but if he doesn't know the Arabic, what use is it? So if he doesn't know what it means, then he's lost it. Okay, anybody else want to share anything about this particular story, anything that appeals to them, or they think, you know, we can also learn? Anybody? Haji Iqbal Sabi wants to say something.
For me, this story of the Quran unpacks what I need to do and how do I learn from this. And today, for example, since I started the Tariqa Muhammadiyya course, Tazkiyah Nafs, I am able to pick these up and monitor it. That thing which is doing a muhasabah of yourself, alhamdulillah, if stories affect you at that moment when you hear it or read it, the feel, but the thirst and the motivation to do something about it, and I'm talking about practically myself. I'm a maybe old-fashioned guy, but the tick sheets and the jealousy, for example, arrogance. Now, I go back to the Tazkiyah Nafs book and say, Iqbal, you need to do these 10 levels.
MashaAllah.
Humbleness, you need to do these 10 levels. It's okay looking. It's looking at the past, that these people had these qualities. It should motivate only me. I'm not going to benefit from them. I'm going to benefit what I do. So this surah or the Quran, when I understand it, I'm a very ignorant person, but when I understand it, my teacher said, do to implement it, not to read just for reading it.
MashaAllah.
That is the book or the Quran.
MashaAllah, wonderful. Thank you. You can see the passion of this modern Buzurg, no? He says he's a modern Buzurg, mashallah. And modern means, don't take it wrong, modern actually means of our time. He lives in his time, and you are supposed to live in your time. Rasulullah ﷺ lived in the 7th century. He didn't live in the 4th century or the 20th century, did he? You live in your own time. That's what it means. His contemporary, his Asri, in Urdu we'll call it Asri. So that's really, mashallah, jazakallah for your passion, Ajsab again, Oh, okay. Well, as I said, there's lots of lessons you can learn from this story. Now the Quran itself makes a comment. Do you want to listen to what the Quran's comment is on this story? Listen to what I said. It starts from verse 45. The parable of life and death. Tell them. Immediately after telling this story, the next verse is, tell them a parable of worldly life. It's like the rain we send down from the sky. The soil soaks it. Plants grow, then turn into dry straw that is scattered by the winds. Allah has power over all things. Wealth and children are beautiful decorations of this life. However, the fruit of the good deeds will remain with your Lord. What an excellent reward and hope. Can you see that comment? It's already telling you that the purpose of telling this story was to show you how ephemeral, transient, fleeting, and temporary the worldly life is. Okay? And this comment again restates that and reinforces that idea, isn't it? This is, do you see the aptness of that? This parable here the Quran is telling? So the point I wanted to show you is the jointedness and the coherence. So that story now and this parable with it forms the commentary of that, okay? And it carries on actually. The Quran goes on to tell us something else, Jana, opening of personal records on Judgment Day. So it goes on to say, the day when we clear away the mountains, you will see the earth spread out as a vast plain, and we shall gather the dead. No one will be left out. So this is about, can you see, the Quran was talking about the past, okay? It came to the present, and now it's going to the future. So within, on one page, you get the past, the present, and the future all put together. And sometimes it compresses, everything, and just takes you to the Jannah. All right. So here, listen to what it says here, and this is interesting. It says when the mountains will be cleared, as though this is where the Maidan Hashr will be. Okay. This is where the Maidan Hashr will be. They will be presented before your Lord in rows. It will be said, you have come to us as we created you the first time. You thought we wouldn't fulfill our promise. When the record will be laid out before them, the sinners will be frightened of what they see in it. And they will say, woe to us. What kind of record is this that doesn't leave out anything small or big? It records everything. They will find everything they had ever done in front of them, and your Lord is not unjust to anyone. This is again a commentary on that whole story. This man refusing and thinks that he will just walk into Jannah. Allah says, no, you have to do something for it. Yeah, no? Justice will happen. Okay, if you have to earn Jannah. You don't just walk into it just because you were a rich and forceful person. That's not how. Okay. So that's the third story, is it? Second story. Okay, the third one is which follows from verse 50, which is about the shaitan and Adam alayhi salam. And this is in the middle as well, right in the middle of the surah as well. Can you think of that? The story of the combat between Adam alayhi salam and the temptations. Okay. And that's at the center. We said, as though this is the central theme. Okay, this is the center of the surah. okay, where the shaitan is vying, for your attention. He's trying to woo you towards himself. He's trying to divert you from Allah. He's trying to take you from Allah effectively, okay? So the Quran tells us that story, Jano, and how he was able to, I say read that yourselves. I'll leave that for you to read, this story of what happens. And everybody's familiar with that story, okay? Here the Quran doesn't tell the whole story at length. It just actually hints to it, that this is what happened to you. Perhaps, and this is a full ruku as well, yeah. The Quran uses or these Buzurgs made it as one theme, the Satan. The Satan misleads you, okay? And then the Quran begins to comment on that from verse 54, okay? I've given that title of Humanity is Quarrelsome and the Locked Minds of the Disbelievers, okay? So those are the two sections that are really commentary on this. Well, let me read this first one, Humanity is Quarrelsome. We have explained all sorts of lessons for people's benefit in this Quran, but humans are quarrelsome creatures, They are, وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. We're very quarrelsome, are we not? We like to pick fights, don't we? Anybody, we just like to have quarrels and debates and anything, eh? We're going to blow off. So, what stops people from believing and seeking the forgiveness of their Lord when the guidance has come to them? Are they waiting for the same fate as the earlier generations, or for the punishment to be brought right in front of them? The messengers were sent to give good news and a warning. The disbelievers disputed, using false arguments to weaken the truth, and they mocked my verses and warnings. Do you see how pithy that, mashallah, commentary is on that, and telling us, why are you doing this, eh? And appealing to our inner goodness, really, that we should be waking up to the call of Allah. And then the locked minds of the disbelievers. From here, وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِّرَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ فَأَعْرَضْ عَنْهَا. Who is more unjust than the one who is reminded of his Lord's verses and turns away from them, forgetting what he is sending ahead of him? We have locked their minds. They cannot understand. We have locked their. It's very interesting this, the Quran uses this word. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ أَكِنَّةً أَن يَفْقَهُوا وَفِي آذَانِهِمْ وَقْرًا. We have عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ أَكِنَّةً, as though it's like barrier and impervious covering. A screen has been put over their hearts. So, and the Quran uses this idea that, so between them and between Allah, what has happened now? There is a barrier. Somebody was talking about, I think, was it Sheikh talking about it yesterday? How this barrier is created between the heart and God. And the Quran actually talks about how, people put these barriers. And the whole point here, Allah says, get rid of that barrier. Come on, get rid of those veils and curtains so that you can see me. See the reality and the truth, okay? So Allah says, this is what, and وَفِي آذَانِهِمْ وَقْرًا. Their ears are heavy now. Their ears are heavy, meaning, they've made themselves deaf. They don't know to listen. They themselves have done this. So but Allah says, we've done it. What that really means is that because of their constant stubbornness and their unwillingness and, their turning away from us, we have allowed this to happen. That's what it means, really, okay? It doesn't mean Allah, gets some lead and puts it into their ears, all right? No, He doesn't come and do that, He gives them opportunities. And when they don't want to do it, Allah says, well, we take away our goodness from them. They're deprived. They are deprived. They become mahroom. They've taken themselves away from the rahmah of Allah. Do you see that? They themselves have done this, not Allah, okay? So, this is a misreading if you think that Allah, comes and puts a lead into their ears and puts these barriers and things in front of them. No, this is a result. In fact, in Surah Yasin, it makes it very clear. Because of their stubbornness, we have done this. Because of their, stubbornness means I don't want to listen. So what can you do now? Eh? If your child says, I don't want to listen, and he does this, or your daughter does this, what can you do? You can't even touch them because police might be there next moment. So, the Quran says, okay, and you are free, and this is empowering. This is really empowering, Allah empowers us. Although Allah could, He could twist and say, I don't want to do that. Why should I do that? I'm the Lord, I'm the Rabbul Alameen. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make you. I want you to see. I want to see you. Are you really capable of making the right judgments? You've got all the potential. Why don't you? You've got the potential. I want to see. And your reward is going to be for that difficult choice you're going to make. All right. So I hope you can see, those locked minds. It's not Allah who's locking them, Jana. And then it goes on to say that your Lord is forgiving, kind. Why is he saying that? It's forgiving and kind here, meaning, listen, it doesn't matter how bad your deeds are, how wrong you have done. I'll forgive you. Just turn to me, okay? Just turn to me. Had we punished them for what they did, then it would have come sooner. But there is a fixed time from which they will find no escape. We destroyed these towns because they did wrong. We fixed the time of their destruction. Again, Allah is saying, we're going to give you respite. Mohla. We're going to give you respite. We're going to give you time to think. A breather. We're going to give you. You're okay. You'll be given plenty of that. Again, that is sabr of Allah. He's as-sabur after all. So that's the third story, okay, where Adam alayhi salam was tempted. All right. The fourth story is the story of the Musa and Hizr, the green man. Hizr is not mentioned in the Quran. There's no word Hizr here at all, no? Okay. So what happened? The Hadith tells us that, and the Mufassirin write this, is Musa alayhi salam was asked, is there anybody more knowledgeable than you? And Musa alayhi salam being Kalimullah, what was he? That's a great title, the one who speaks to Allah. He speaks to Allah, he hears Allah, he talks to Allah, and he's also a legislator, the lawgiver, he's the Rasul, and he's been given Torah as well. So naturally, he says, I am the one who is most knowledgeable. Okay? Is there anything inaccurate or wrong in that? No, there's nothing wrong there. He's not boasting or he's just saying the truth. I know I am the most knowledgeable because I can talk to my Lord. Okay? He's given me Torah. He inspires me. So, but Allah says, there is another form of knowledge which Musa, you don't have. Okay? You have, the ghaib, but there is ghaibul ghaib. There are mysteries beyond the ghaib as well. And you don't know all of them, Musa. You don't know them all. Okay? And so we're going to teach you through this green man. So the hadith talks about, and the books of tafsir talk about this green man. But green man is actually a universal. Every tradition and every culture has a green man. We have a green man in Nottingham. Who's that? Robin Hood, yes, seriously, he's the green man. So every culture has this green man who stands up for justice, who stands up for truth, who's symbol of goodness, really. So every culture has made it. It's not real. I don't think Robin Hood was real. I don't think he was. But there were people like him, seriously, there were people like him who stood up against the establishment, against the tyrants of their time. No doubt, in every culture there were, aren't there? I don't know do you have one in Canada? I'm sure the Red Indians would certainly have many amongst them. And you're only new Canadians. You're only, is it 100 years old or less than that even? So 150. Okay, 152 years old. But what is that in the scheme of history, eh? But so this is really important. Every culture has this green man. I'm sure we have lots of these in our traditions, in Punjabi and in Indians and all over the world. They have them. So anyway, the story of Musa and Hizr, it's a very deep story about the serendipity, that what appears to be deleterious and disastrous and devastating and shocking outwardly actually could be something very, very good for you. Okay, that's what it means. By chance, it turns out to be absolutely wonderful. Eh? I don't know. All of us must have had experienced serendipity and things like this where you thought, oh, that's devastating, isn't it? Oh, what can we do now? I've lost. And it turns out that was really the best thing that happened. Isn't that right? Can you all think of those kind of, yeah? And here, this is really all about that. And Musa alayhi salam, but this story, the way the Quran tells it, this is the genius of the Quran, to be honest. So Musa is, told, go and look for this man, and Allah tells him you will find him where the two rivers meet, and the fish you will carry will disappear at that point. Okay, and that will be the place where you will meet him. So Musa and he takes with him one of his favorite students. So they go, and eventually they meet him. And this is how Musa alayhi salam introduces and humbly asks. Just listen to this. This is Kalimullah, the legislator. And Musa alayhi salam was very tall and a big man as well, So what does he do? He says to him, هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا. Can I follow you so that you can teach me that which you have been taught? Just imagine, eh? Can I follow you? هل أتبعك. Can I follow you so that you can teach me what you have been taught? Subhanallah. That is, the humility of the Prophet of God. But the green man is very proud and emboldened man. He says to him, إِنَّكَ لَمْ تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِي صَبْرًا. Musa, you cannot be patient with me. You won't be. No, he said, you are not able to be patient with me. You will not be patient with me. But he says, all right then, Jana. And then he says to him, وَكَيْفَ تَصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ خُبْرًا. How could you be patient anyway? Because you won't know the underlying issues. So we don't. It gives him an excuse. All right, yeah, and I'll let you follow me. So but Musa says to him, Musa is also a prophet of God. He says, "Satajidun insha Allahu sabiran wala a'si laka amra." You will indeed find me patient, and I won't disobey you. I won't disobey you. Okay. Anyway, the whole story, you all know what happens in that story. And then at the end, Hizr alayhi salam gives him, after those 3 nasty incidences, very nasty ones really, and unbelievable, that any sensible person could ever do things like this. So Musa obviously rebels against them. He says, how can you kill a young boy without any reason? How can you destroy this wonderful ship that has brought us across here? It makes no sense. But being a low person of law, it's natural that he reacts in that way, and but then he explains, the green man finally explains to him, why, I've done this. I'm not going to tell you that. You can look up that yourself. But again, here is the man of knowledge. So this story is really about the man of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Okay? So, and how he responds to that. So coming back to the 4th story. Let's go to the 4th story, and then we'll look at the underlying themes of these. Okay? So the 4th story is, the 5th story is, which one is it? Dhul Qarnayn. Okay? So the Quran says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ قُلْ سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُم مِّنْهُ ذِكْرًا. They ask you about Alexander. Okay? Now this is not Alexander the Great. Right? Why isn't he Alexander the Great? Because the Alexander or the Zulqarnain the Quran speaks about here is a wonderful man, is a patient man, is a devout man, he's a man of Allah. And what do we know about Alexander the Great? We know a lot about him. He was a most terrible, barbaric monster, absolute monster. He really was a inhuman. He was a psychopath. You know what he did? He would kill thousands of people, just kill them. Orders like that, So, I mean, if he had the modern weaponry, it's just the same, ordering your Air Force to go and bomb, and blanket bombing. He would do that. That's what he would, similar sort of, yeah, kill them. Yes, kill them all. That's the sort of way he behaved and lived. And so we see the same, when humans have power. But this Zulqarnain is somebody different. And the Quran tells us about his 3 journeys to the east, to the west, and one somewhere else. It doesn't say which. And wherever he goes, he does good to people. So when he comes to this one particular group of people who are being harassed by Gog and Magog, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they ask him for help. So Ya'juj and Ma'juj is some kind of a vicious tribe who is attacking these people. And Zulqarnain is asked, can you help us? So he says, yes, I'll help you. I'll build a wall here for you. And so he builds a wall for them. So you can see that he's a man of good nature, a ruler, an emperor who is a good ruler. Okay. What did this surah start with? A ruler who was a tyrant, who was forcing these young men to run away because they would not be able to save faith. Do you see that? I wanted to share that ring structure with you, and how this is the 5th story, totally disconnected, you would say, of a different, but it's got a connections, hasn't it? And these are the underlying sort of themes that connect, and we'll come to the last verses of this later on. I know some of you will be burning with questions about who are these Gogs and Magogs, and I'll leave that for another occasion for you to search for, okay, because it's a fascinating, but let's go back to what is the underlying theme. So what connects these 5 stories? So in my introduction, I mentioned that these stories are connected by temptations that individuals face, okay? So what are the temptations me and you are facing day and night, all the time, continuously, okay? Well, first one is the faith. The young men feared the emperor would forcefully convert them. Our faith is always being challenged by the society, isn't it? It's very interesting. I subscribe to Christian magazines. I read them very avidly, every day almost. I subscribe to 3 different magazines, and I read them because it's really important to know what your opponents and adversaries are doing and what they're up to. It's really important to see what their techniques are. So I read those very avidly, and it's very interesting. They always talk about, we are the most persecuted religion in the world. We are persecuted. We are the most persecuted in the UK, and look at how they're persecuting us. And of course they'll have stories to back up their persecutions. You didn't believe that, do you? You don't think? They are actually, Christianity is under a huge attack there, constantly by the atheists and by secularists, humanists, constantly attacking it. We talk about Islam and Muslim being attacked, but this is a very aggressive society, They really, if they are saying we are victims and we are being persecuted, I don't think there's a single issue of Christianity magazine that I subscribe to, and I get it. Can't see a single issue where there isn't, we Christians are being persecuted. Look at this persecution against us. And of course, next to it would be an advert for we need funds to spread and do evangelism, right on the opposite page. And of course, it reinforces that it all goes nicely together. But anyway, the point is, yes, we Muslims actually a bit insensitive, and some will say you are foolish. We think, we're not persecuted. Our faith is not under attack. Isn't that what we think? Yes, I think a lot of us think that. We're not, but we are, to be honest. There is lobbies of all kind doing all kinds of things, which are no doubt. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I trained as a scientist, so I always look for facts and truths, before I make my judgments. But really, there are powerful lobbies, who want to defeat Islam and Muslims, and really it shows in bad color, don't you think? Who's putting out those stories day in and day out in every kind of magazine, every newspaper, every news? And why does BBC start with something Islamophobic and end with an Islamophobic news item? You think that nothing is happening, eh? No, we don't. There is. That is a persecution. That is persecution. And we religious people are actually too soft and too gentle and too perhaps naive, to be honest. I think that's proper, but too naive and not really bothered in many ways. We say, oh, I can do my namaz and I'm okay. So listen, I'm not telling you to accept conspiracy theories or regard that, people are just shooting us and persecuting us. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we need to realize, that our faith is under attack, okay? And we will defend our faith the way that Allah tells us to do. And there is only one way, and that is through invitation. Through good word. Violence is not the way of deen, okay? Forcing others is not the way. La ikraha fi deen, okay? So ours is one of being patient and one of constantly keeping at it. So don't think, that we are not being persecuted. If Christians are saying they are being persecuted, I think it's true that, we can say we are being persecuted as well. Our faith in schools, this RSE whole thing, what is it? Isn't it? Look, this is small minorities challenging the faith of majority in a harsh way. And you dare say something, you could get in serious problem. And so I hope you can see, isn't there? Yeah, so anyway, that's another issue. But what I'm saying to you is our faith is constantly being challenged. It wasn't just the Sahaba that were challenged in their time. We too are. And it's important to know that, there are anti-religious forces. That does not mean we don't still work with our opponents and adversaries and other people. It in fact means we work even more harder with interfaith dialogues, with community cohesion projects, and try to build better relationships with everybody. I'm trying to do that through my project called the Trust Building Forum. And in that, we are trying to build trust with our wider society, with everybody, in various ways, mashallah. And there's some research has been done by Nottingham University about our work to show that, mashallah, it is having a really positive impact in overcoming Islamophobia. Okay, so really, we've got to be positive, and we say we can stand up for our religion. Okay, we're not going to hide. Okay, we're not going to be scared either. Okay, we are actually, and this is one of the beauties of this country. This is a free country. It gives us that freedom. Okay, to stand up for our faith, and we will not be persecuted. Inshallah, Aziz, if anybody persecutes us, we need to be standing up and saying our own faith. So yes, first story is about how faithful people are going to be challenged. So get ready for it, as though the Quran is saying, and this is why the Prophet is saying you need to read it in the time of Dajjal, at the time of the super deceiver. So you need to, strengthen your faith. Second temptation is wealth. We are tempted by wealth. We love it. And when wealth opposes religious duties, what do? Which way do we go? It's obvious. We go towards wherever our wealth takes us, not where the deen is taking us, sadly. That's a real challenge for us. Innama amwalukum wa awladukum fitna. That is the real fitna. That is the real test for us. The third thing is the temptations of the shaitan. Somebody was asking me, is the shaitan so powerful? Temptations of the shaitan. What is it? Yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas. He inspires, he whispers. Waswasa actually is whis. See, this is the beauty of Arabic words I said to you. They sound like they mean. Whispering, waspara, whispering, okay? It whispers, and it's a insinuation, very mild, okay? Very well-crafted way of leading you towards something, okay? So that's what he does. Yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, okay? He's constantly doing that. Allah has given him that power to do that. However, the reality is that they are actually it's quite a weak force. The shaitan is it's quite a weak force. It can actually dissipate and vanish in thin air. If you said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, he will disappear. Right? Seriously. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Everybody say that. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Whenever a wrong thought comes to your mind, just say it. And have you not felt it? I'm sure you've all experienced that, haven't you? A wrong thought comes, and then I say, A'udhu billah, it disappears. That is how strong he is. That is how strong the shaitan is. So you can't actually blame him, to be honest. There's no room for that. No, he's doing his job. Your job is then to be able to put up screens, and shields to put up. And Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved us, and he gave us lots of shields. He said, "As-siyamu junnah." He said, fasting is the shield. Fasting is your. Yeah, just use. What do you used to use shields for? Well, you boys won't know. They used to do bow and arrow in those days. But nowadays, those futuristic films where they're fighting and they do put up some kinds of shields. Okay, firewall. How's that? You have firewalls in your computer, don't you? That's right. It's a firewall. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, what is fasting? It is your shield. It's your firewall against the shaitan. Shaitan can't. Yeah, bulletproof armor. Yeah, yes. You can use bullet armor. Yes. So, shaitan is tempting you, but it's no excuse. You really should not. You should be very confident. I can defeat this little weak, winkling, whatever you want to use. What is he? I can, inshallah, fight this off very easily, inshallah. Or are you defeatist? Are you able to fight the shaitan? Inshallah. But you know what you are doing? You are seeking Allah's help here. Okay? So one sheikh asked one of his students how he would, if he was to go to somebody's house and there was a big bulldog near the front door, what would he do? What would he do? Well, he said, he said, just ask the owner to please tie him up. So what are you doing here? You're asking Allah, Ya Allah, and this dog of yours, can you tie him up for me? I know. And that's what it is. So really, you're putting your trust in Allah. You're not putting trust in yourself. You're putting trust in Allah. But you believe that He is not that strong. The fourth one, the story of Musa and Hizr, tells us how knowledge can also be very detrimental. It can become a hijab. The Sheikh was just talking about how knowledge can become a big barrier. Okay, and of course it wasn't for Musa. Musa is a pure and wonderful prophet of God. But Allah uses that example to show us that knowledge can become a great knowledge with it, competences, skills, and nowadays we could say your degree, and your career or your position and your status. Okay, all those things give you power, don't they? And they can actually make you go crazy. They can really make you feel very powerful, and you look down on others. So resistance against this is found in humility, in recognizing one's weakness and frailties. So you see how Musa says, can I just follow you? Being humble, okay? So humility is what's needed here. And finally, power can corrupt. This is Zulqarnain's story. Here is a man with great power. But what does he do? Wherever he goes, subhanallah. And this is really, it's so sad. We live in a world where every country and everyone is just wanting to usurp their neighbors and damage them and not be good. We don't seem to have learnt lessons, after wars and thousands of years of fighting, that you can never get away with it. Okay, every single American president, has launched one or several wars. Even the wonderful Obama, the one who got Nobel Prize for Peace. How many wars did he launch? Just shows you the irony. Nobel Prize for Peace to a man who destroyed Libya and few other countries along, in the make. Man of peace, It just shows you. Can you see Dajjal now? Can you see Dajjal and deception anywhere? It's just, but sadly, even, of course, Muslim countries are even worse. Let's be honest, they are even worse. I don't want to mention any name because I might not be barred from going to them ever. So,
there is the reality.
That's the reality, yes.
There is the reality.
Yes, you got.
We are worse.
Yes.
We are worse, and what you're describing, what you're saying, that religion attack, we are mostly attacked by the Muslim government.
That's right. Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is about power. I hope you can see, in this surah, how 5 stories are told, but through those stories, very important lessons are brought to our minds. Each story, the conflict between good and evil is clear. The 5 types of trials are like a thread binding these stories together. The surah also features much movement, plodding from place to place. The sleepers of the cave climb a mountain. The rich man and the poor man walk to the orchard. Musa travels by foot in a boat. And the adventurers and the adventures of Zulqarnain wandering from east to west with his army. Hint, goodness is promised in movement and searching for Allah's gifts. Anyway, there's so many wisdoms in all of this. We can inshallah go on forever and ever. I just wanted to finish off with, I've got 15 minutes, did you say? 15. Can I have my slide on? Who's going to help me to get my other slide? I want to move to the other. Let me just. I want to go back to the desktop. Okay, let's get to where is my, here. Okay, so I just want to go through some helpful tips for studying the Quran effectively. Would you like to have some helpful? I mean, you've all got your own ways of doing it, but just to, just to share with you. But this comes with the understanding that, first of all, you look at the Quran as a book of guidance. And what do we mean by guidance here is very much like actually a handbook, a guidebook, okay, a handbook. And I hope this is something, Aji Iqbal is talking about, the Sheikh is constantly telling you about, the tick boxes and checklists and really monitoring yourself. It's very much like that, to be honest, okay? And that shows how, we take it seriously. So regard it as a book that is a manual for you, a manual. You need it all the time, okay? So, and I've talked about how the surahs have a central theme and that develops throughout it, okay? And I've written some surahs open with the mysterious broken letters, which is really interesting. Alif, Lam, Ra, Ha, Mim, Yasin. Why? Actually, to make the point that you're not going to understand everything, okay? And oaths and praises and glorification of the Lord, followed by arguments for the Lord's majesty, reference to his creative power in nature, or description of hell and heaven, rewards, punishment, or reference to human history of disobedience. This idea of human disobedience, the Quran keeps on repeating to tell us, you better not be disobedient, eh? The Quran gives very direct instructions. So that's what makes it easy in some ways. It says, anfiqu, spend in Allah's way. Aqimus salah, pray. Wazkurullah, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tafakkar, think and reflect, and so on. It gives very direct, okay? So there's nothing to, there's no abstract terms in it, in that sense. It's really very to the point. The Quran routinely keeps things brief. So don't look for details and don't want them either. I'm sure we don't want details. So all those 5 stories, did you see any names other than Musa mentioned? Zulqarnain is mentioned. And even there, Zulqarnain is really a title. It's not the name. We don't know which Zulqarnain actually means the one with 2 horns. So these were many kings of different areas. The Quran is not really the names of places. Not at all. Yet this is all about places, wasn't it? Again, the Quran is saying, we want to save your time. We want you to really focus on the real thing, which is, how do you get guidance from this, okay? The emotions, the experiences. That's what you should really be thinking about rather than, do you want to learn names of, okay, the Quran could have given the 7 names of the sleepers, okay, of the 10 names, and the place it happened in, the date it happened, what would it do to you? Add to your understanding of guidance? Not at all, not at all, yeah. No? So I hope you, you see this is the latest way, and how people who are pushed for time never want these sort of useless details. Yeah, this is really important that this is a manual, yeah, no? Not a textbook, okay? You're not doing a course, all right? Yeah, there's a difference between a course, course has a beginning and an end, all right? This is for life, all right? This is never ending, okay? Min al-mahdi ila al-lahd, the Prophet said. From your cradle to your grave, you learn and you get guidance, okay? It demands your full attention. So this is why, you begin with A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. You want to get rid of all the wrong thoughts. You want to be in a serene place where there isn't distraction, okay? It uses a lot of akal, okay? And this is why I think, modern societies in the West in particular will accept the Qur'an, because they're reasonable, they use reason, okay? And so inshallah we can use reason. So that I just end with this beautiful prayer, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts and minds to his beautiful speech, so that we can really understand what he's saying to us. We can experience the Jannah and Jahannam, really. Experience it. The Quran actually gives you the tastes of Jannah and the smells of it and the clothes of it. Seriously, just read some of those. And in here, you will see passages about Jannah, and then the passages of hell, absolutely terrifying. And the passages of Jannah really are amazing. I just want to perhaps read one or two to you, but you yourself, when you read them, I've just opened here, and here is just one here. The delights of paradise in Surah Al-Ghashiyah. Allah says, some faces that day will be beautiful and bright, well pleased with their efforts, living in elegant gardens, where they won't hear any idle chat, gardens watered by flowing springs, furnished with raised and comfortable sofas, wine glasses gracefully arranged, silken cushions set in rows, and luxurious soft carpets laid all around them. Okay? And there's an opposite description of Jahannam just there as well. And we can just go on to, I'll just do this one with you. This is in Surah An-Naba'ah, where Allah gives another beautiful picture. Just listen to this. The mindful will have splendid success, gardens, vineyards, beautiful young companions of similar ages, and an overflowing cup. I hope you can see here, young companions of similar ages. That doesn't mean men will have hurs only and nothing about women. It's really, but the Quran is so discreet because it believes in purity, and so this is haya of the Quran, but it's equal for women, all right? So don't, really, it's totally wrong to think that women are deprived of any of this. Absolutely equal, really is, there's a lot of work that has been shown, and Muslims have never believed that there is any disparity in Jannah for men and women, never, okay? But so when the Quran talks about these, it's always applying to women equally. Beautiful young companions of similar ages, but look at the decency and the haya of the Quran. Zafar, we were talking about how do we create haya in ourselves today, but the Quran is full of that. Surah Yusuf is another beautiful example of haya and modesty. So he says, the Quran is describing what's happening in Jannah, beautiful young companions of similar ages and overflowing cups. They won't hear idle talk or lies, a fitting reward and a gift from your Lord, Lord of the heavens and the earth, and what is between the two. The Most Kind will not allow them to speak, and so on. And read those beautiful passages of Jannah and of Jahannam, and some of the speeches of Allah are just amazing. Some of the speeches of the Quran itself about it are again very powerful and moving. They're really, you can't find any alternative. This sublime, absolutely sublime. So, well, thank you very much. You've been very wonderful students, very patient, and may Allah bless you all and give you that opening through the Shaykh. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
We do have literally a few minutes. If anybody's got a quick, brief question, very brief, it's relating to the topic. So I'll be happy to take one or two questions if Dr. Musharraf is here.
I'll be happy to.
If anybody has, again, relating to the topic. Okay.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Doctor, not this lecture, the one prior, you spoke about, I believe there were attributes of Allah, 18 words you utilized. But in my understanding, I've read that there's 99 attributes of Allah. So what were those related to those 18 attributes that you used? I was a little bit confused
Good
about
question. Allah doesn't have 99 only. 99 million billions.
Subhanallah.
Okay, so the Quran uses the 99 names are the Prophet ﷺ, just to make it easy for us, said that these are the 99, and we use these, and they're all from the Quran as well. These 99 are what we call tawqifi. Okay, they're from the Quran.
Yes.
They are directly from the Quran. But there are attributes means sifa. These are adjectives that describe some aspect of the divine. Okay, so really there are thousands and thousands of names, and some scholars have actually mentioned and written those 1,000 names of Allah. Okay, so it's not a thousands, thousands of names. Yes, because well, in fact, there are 12 million living species. Scientists say there are how many? 12 million living species. We know some. I don't know, is it 1 million or 2 million that we've been able to catalogue, but there are many, many more to be discovered. Each one of those ajsab is really an attribute of Allah, because each one of them is so unique and special that it just sings praises of the Lord, its creator, isn't it? And look at the bee, the way it makes the honey, all right? That is God's creation, and that is God's praise, isn't it? Indeed, so that is why the Quran keeps on using these signs, to bring us to Allah. And so 12 million, the scientists are telling there are 12 million names of Allah. That I can say that. Okay, there are 12 million. Okay, so each one of them. Do you understand what I mean by that? Isn't that, so? Yeah, the names are.
But
no number on them.
You categorically mentioned 18.
18
names.
in Surah Al-Hashr.
Surat Al-Hashr.
In those 3 verses, just in 3 verses, Allah just mentions He's Alimul Ghaybi wa Shahada, He's Muhaymin, He's Quddus, He's Salam. So just to, as though it says, why does the mountain fear Him? Well, it wouldn't it? Because look at this Lord who is Jabbar, who is Qahhar, who is Muhaymin, who is Quddus, who is Salam, and so on. Do you see that? So, yeah, we're just using that. Yes. And, the idea that your Shaykh gives you the names of Allah to recite. And why do they do that? Again, there's which names do they give you? They don't say, Haji Sahab, I want you to say, Ya Jabbaru, Ya Jabbaru, Ya Qahharu, 1,000 times. Do they? Never. It would be usually, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Kareem, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Sattar. Professor Muhammad, isn't that right? Which ones do they give? Why? When they say, Haji Sahab, I want you to recite Ya Kareem 1,000 times. Oh generous, oh generous, oh generous, oh generous. Oh the one who gives freely, freely without expecting anything in return. Oh the one who gives freely, freely without expecting anything in return. If you say that 100 times, what's going to happen to you? Well, don't you think you would say, generous, I'm saying generous, the one who gives freely, I'm calling him, I'm miserly. Do you see what he's trying to do, the Shaykh? He's trying to tell you by you doing these, saying these names of Allah, you're going to become embodiment of them. That is the whole point, seriously. That psychologically, that is the reason why you do it, you know. And Ya Salam, oh peace, oh peace. You know, you're asking for peace. You want to become peaceful yourself. Do you see that? So that's why you're given those beautiful names. Usually, you know, Ya Wadud, oh loving, oh loving. Okay?
Jazakallah for that. I think we'll wrap up at this point, and I would like to thank you.
Can I just before, you know, I hope you've all got this. I don't know how you found that useful, this worksheet. If anybody wants it, soft copy, you can either email me or Haji Gulfam. It's up to you. If you want to see me, I can give you my card. If you send me, I will be able to send you, you know, this, or Haji Gulfam or whoever
we
here.
Leave these here?
Yeah, I'll leave these here for you.
Okay, so if anybody wants one.
And these themes of the themes, the themes of the Quran, you can have that as well. So I do ask you all to please make dua. And do spread this majestic Quran, you know, if you like it, to your friends, and do ask them to, because, you know, we don't have any marketing budgets and marketing ways. We just don't know, to be honest. And the only way we do it is through our good friends. The Sheikh is supporting, and I hope you will also pass this on. And the whole point is we want people to come back to the Quran, really. Jazakallah. Thank you very much, everybody.
Jazakallah, Dr. Musharraf. And again, the best way to support this noble project is to first and foremost buy a copy for yourself, so help rekindle that relationship with the Quran for yourself personally, and even better, buy one as a gift for a loved one. So again, there's some copies still remaining at the back. Even beyond that, how do we contact you if they want further Qurans later on?
If you know, majesticquran.com.
That's it.
Majesticquran.com, and you can order through that, or you can contact.
Very easy, the majesticquran.com. Jazakallah. What I would like to do, before we break up now, you've got a long rest break now until Asr, I'd like to hand the books out, which were supposed to have been given to you before Zohar. So bring those two boxes out, please.